Welcome to the 6th chapter of the book of Daniel. We end in the fifth chapter, and Darius the Mede took the kingdom, being 62 years old. Now, a lot of things have been written on this, the chronology of if there was a Darius that was at this period of time, and I'm not going to go into depth in that whole subject because books have been written about it, but I'm just letting you know that there was a lot of discussion over whether there was a Darius or not at this period of time, if there could have been. So therefore, putting the question if this is true, and if you go to Wikipedia, it has a whole section that this basically is a myth, that somebody came up with these ideas and it was not God's word and so forth. But I have a friend who reads all the time, reads a lot of books. And when he reads these things, then he takes them as fact, even though he knows nothing about the subject. And it could be climate or anything. He is not a climatologist. He has never studied it, knows nothing, but he reads about it. So therefore he knows all about it, and he can make these statements, and then if anybody disagrees with him, well, then he gets upset and so forth. And in history, historians are sort of the same way. I call it almost hysterics because they will look at things, they'll come up with ideas and try to figure it out. They'll go to different historians that wrote ancient history, and this is like 600 years before Christ, a long time ago, 2,600 years ago, and they'll look at different historians and how they wrote. But then if you go to these historians and you look at how people study it, they'll find that this one historian was wrong on his dating of a certain thing or mentioning of a certain thing, because another one has this and the other one says this and he's wrong. And so they're wrong, but yet when it's something like here in the Bible, they will take it as fact. And so there's a lot to be studied about the time of this Darius and Cyrus, as mentioned at the end of this chapter. I just want to let you know, I'm not going to go into a big thing on it, because to me it ends in Matthew 24:15. Some people say there was no Daniel. It was just an invention of these stories. But in Matthew 24:15, Jesus says, "Whenever then you should behold the abomination of the desolation, the thing having been spoken through Daniel the prophet." Basically the same thing in Mark 13:14. So Jesus is talking about the end times. And so this is what Daniel will be getting into as we go along here. And so Jesus is either wrong, and if he's wrong, then we're wasting all of our time, because he's not God and he's not what he says. But yet he states that this Daniel was a prophet. So to me, I believe it. I'm not going to sit there and spend a lot of time trying to disprove it, because I'm a believer in the Word of God. I know what it is and how I feel, and so I'm not going to sit there and be a what's the word for it? Somebody that defends the Bible. There are people that do that very well, much better than I. I am basically teaching what the words say and how they relate to different places within the Word itself. And this is what I do, and this is the beginning of the 6th chapter, verse 1, and it says, "And it was pleasing before Darius, and he placed Epites Vasileus over the kingdom, Ekaton 120 satraps. A satrap was a governor, basically, of a province of ancient Persia. So he placed 120 satraps over this area. Not exactly where it was, it doesn't say. For them to be in his entire kingdom. Well, I guess it does, in his entire kingdom. And above them, 3 tacticus. You can add this word to the English derivative books, a tactician. Somebody that studies tactics, political tactics, military tactics. He appointed 3 tacticians, whom Daniel was one from out of them. For the satraps to render a reckoning to them. So Daniel is over the satraps. He's one of the three. So that the king should not be troubled and be like a modern day in the United States. The executive has his cabinet and people there that are over certain subjects. And president doesn't get involved in all these different things. And Daniel was over them, for extra pneuma, spirit, was in him. And the king placed him over his entire kingdom. So Daniel was he was put in charge as he was with Nebuchadnezzar. Apparently Darius had heard of him, this Darius, and had placed him back into a high position. And the tactiki and the satrape sought an excuse to find something against Daniel. And he was a Jew, he was a foreigner, and that he was at the top, and people want to find something against somebody like that. We had a Jewish man who, I don't even think he was American in the United States, Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, and a lot of people like to find things at fault because he's not an American. He had a heavy accent. I don't think he's American. He was born in America. I'm not sure. But he had a heavy accent. And any excuse and transgression and error they did not find against him, for he was trustworthy. So they probably sent spies, try to find something that he did wrong, and couldn't find anything. He was very upright. And the tactiki, the other two, said, we did not find against Daniel an excuse unless it be in the laws of his God. So now they're going to think, well, now, he's different than us, so therefore we can look at the laws of his God and see what he's doing. And the Jews have, when they've been sent, the diaspora sent away from Israel and Jerusalem and throughout the world, and they've always under the microscope. People finding fault and not liking them, and just over and over in thousands of years of history. So this was not new, because they were in the diaspora of the Persian Empire now. Then the tactiki and the satrape stood beside the Vasili and said to him, Varie Vasilef, live into the aeonas, the eons. All the ones over your kingdom took counsel, commandants, strategy, and satrape, satraps, supreme leaders, and toparche, to establish a royal vasiliki, royal position, and to strengthen an enactment, so that whoever should ask a request para pantos theou ke anthropou from any god or man for 30 imeron days, except from you, O king Vasilef, shall be put into the pit of the leonton, the lions. So now they're setting it up for Daniel to get caught. Now then, Vasilef, establish the enactment and display in writing, graphene, how the decree, the dogma of the Persian and Medes should not be changed. So this is their law. Once you made the law, then that's it. Then Vasilefs Tharios gave orders, graphene, to write to dogma, the decree. And when Daniel knew that the decree was arranged, he went into his house, and the windows were open to him in his upper rooms before Jerusalem. So he had the windows open that would face the west to Jerusalem, and 3 times of the day he was bending upon his knees and praying, making acknowledgement before his God. Oh, that we would all spend 3 times a day making acknowledgement before our God. Some people do, and it's wonderful to spend a lot of time in prayer. if there was anybody that didn't need to pray, it would have been Jesus, because he was God in the flesh. He could call his angels at any time he wanted, and he could raise the dead, heal, do whatever he wanted. He was God. And yet he spent so much time in prayer. If you go through the New Testament, find all the times that he went up on mountains in the middle of the night and he was praying. And if he didn't need to pray more than anybody, so we should be praying more than him. And this is not generally the case. I'm at fault myself, but I was in the island of Patmos, stayed at the monastery of St. John the Theologian, and they have, the monks there, they have prayers 3 times a day, and wake up at during this, I was there during Lent, and they were getting up at 3:30 in the morning and spending 2 hours and reading the Bible. And I was thinking, boy, if that was, if only I had that type of dedication to do that. Then those men closely watched and found Daniel petitioning and beseeching his Theou, God. Theology is a derivative. And coming forward, they say to the Vasili, Vasilef, when the F is okay, is in the vocative, vocative, however you pronounce it. O King, and when you have that, it's direct. You're directing the title, and you put an O in front of it. O King, did you not order an enactment that every anthropos, whoever should ask from Pontos Theou, ke anthropu, any god or man, a request unto 30 imeron, except para su Vasilef from you, shall be put into the pit of the Leonton? And the Vasilef said, the word is true. Logos, yes. And the dogma of the Medes and the Persians, Medon, ke person, shall not pass away. Yeah, I made it, and that's it. It's in a law. And then they responded and spoke before the Vasileos, saying, well, Danael, the one from the sons of the Aikmalosia, the captivity of Judea, was not subjected to your dogmati. And 3 times of the Imeris he asks, para to Theou too, his God, the requests of his. All right, now they caught him, and now they're going to have him done in. Kings written the decree, and they've got witnesses that seen what Daniel has done, and so he's a marked man. Then the Vasilefs, as he ikuse, the Rima, he heard, ikuse, acoustics comes from that, the sayings, he fretted poli as much, pali, many times, over him. And concerning Daniel, he struggled to rescue him. So he really liked Daniel, respected him, wanted to get him out of this predicament. And until Esperus, evening, we have the Vespers, prayers in the evening, he was struggling to rescue him. So he spent all the time trying to rescue and find a way out. Then those Andres legacy say to the Vasili, know, Vasilefs, that the dogma of the Medes and the Persians, every enactment and position which the Vasilefs shall establish, must not be altered. In the imperative, must not be altered. Parallaxa, you can add that to your English derivative books. Parallax is the derivative, and it's a displacement or a difference in the apparent position of an object viewed along 2 different lines of sight. All right? Parallax. Then the Vasilefs, so it must not be altered, changed. This is a change. Then the Vasilefs spoke, and they led Daniel, and they put him into the pit of the Leonton. So he couldn't do anything else. He had to go along with the law. But the Vasilef said to Daniel, probably to him by himself, your God in whom you latrevis continually serve, latria, idolatry, latry has to do with serving, idolatry, serving idols, psychiatry, things like that, iatry. He will rescue you. Well, this Uriah is a man of belief, man of trust, faith. He knows, he says, he will rescue you. And they brought one stone, and placed it epi to stoma of the pit, the mouth of the pit. A stoma, stomatic, has to do with the mouth. And the Vasilevs set seal with his dactylio. His ring has a dactylio. Dactyly is a finger, and he had a ring. When you buy an Apostolic Bible in the Eco Cowhide or the leather edition, I put them in a jute bag, heavy material, and that has Vivlos written on it, airbrushed on it, and then I put a seal on it, wax seal, and it's not a ring, but it would be the same thing. It's a round, about a 3/4 of an inch seal that has ABP. And then I heat the wax and put it on drip it on the jute bag, and then I wait, and then I stick the seal in the hot wax, count so many seconds, pull it off, and there ABP is in the seal, in the maroon wax seal. This is what the king did. They had a seal, and with the ring of his great men, so that the thing should not be changed with regard to Daniel. So the other great men had seals also for their level of government, their not an order, but rank. And so the megastanon, they also did the same thing. Now, the seal there could have been a rope or something tied around it. Somehow you know that nobody could open it up unless the seals were broken, so that they would know that somebody did that. And the king went forth, the Vasilevs went forth unto his Econ house, and went to bed supperless. Wow, and food was not carried into him, and hypnos left from him. Hypno has to do with sleep. So he couldn't sleep, didn't eat. He really cared about Daniel. And when somebody doesn't eat and doesn't sleep, then that means that they're serious in their worries for somebody or something. Then the Vasilevs rose up in the morning at the photic, has to do with light, and in haste came unto the pit of the Leonton. And at his approaching to the pit, he yelled with a great phony to Daniel. Phony, a phone, is a transliteration. Daniel, O bondman of the living God, Theou tu zontos, zone, zoo. Remember, I have mentioned many times that zeta omega has to do with something in life or an animal. Living Theou. Your God, in whom you, La Trevis, serve continually, was he able to rescue you from out of the stomatos, ton leonton, the mouth of the lions? Yelling in there. And Daniel said to the Vasili, O king, Vasilev, live into the Aeonis. Yeah, I'm here. My God, Theos Mu, sent his angel, Angelon, and obstructed the stomata, ton leonton, obstructed the mouth of the lions. Now the angel here, it says an angel, so it was an angel. Doesn't say son of God, but Nebuchadnezzar looked in and saw. So an angel was sent, and Daniel spent the night laying on the lions, probably as a pillow. And these lions just laid there and didn't do anything, just quiet as could be. And they did not lay me waste, for before him, that's God, uprightness was found in me. And even before you, Vasilev, I did not commit a transgression. 4160, I mentioned, is a number one verb in the Bible, to do, and has to do, you could say do, but it depends on the context of the sentence. It can be a lot of different things as far as an action verb. Here I have commit. I did not commit a transgression. You could put I did not do a transgression. Then the Vasilevs felt much good over him, and spoke for Daniel to be brought from out of the pit. He was happy. He was happy that Daniel wasn't devoured, and so he called for him to come out of the pit. So he comes out, he comes upstairs or climbs up a rope, however he got out. And they bore Daniel from out of the pit. Sounds like he might have been on some type of a rope, and the animals were down below because they bore him from out of the pit. Sort of like what they did with Jeremiah when he was in the pit. Put ropes down. And all hurt was not found on him, or in him, for he trusted in his God. And this is what this is all about, trusting in God. The Bible wasn't written as some type of a historical document that we're just supposed to read it to find out what history has to say about these kings and the times, but it's a story of God's interaction with mankind, with men. And here, Daniel, even though he was a castaway from his country, taken to a foreign country, yet he stayed with his God, and he trusted in his God. And so much for us, we go through trials and tribulations, and maybe taken out of this country, an army or whatever, and someplace else in battle. You trust in the God that you have. And the king Vasilev spoke, and they led the Andras men, the Avalontas, accusing Daniel. The Diavolo is the devil. He is the accuser, the ones accusing Daniel, and put them into the pit of the Leonton, those people that accused Daniel. Now the king's going to get back. Ooh, boy, is he mad. And their sons and their Ginecus wives. The Gine has to do with women. And they came not unto the floor of the pit before the lions dominated them. So it sounds like they were dropped down, let down, and they were devoured. And they made fine all of their bones. These were some hungry lions. They gobbled them up, and they ate their bones till it was just made fine, laying on the bottom of the pit and inside the lion. That's where they were. Then Darius the Vasilevs wrote to all the peoples, tribes, and languages living in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. So now he's going to do what the King Cyrus, here we get into Cyrus, did after the death of Haman, who tried to destroy the Jews with Esther the queen. And he wrote to the peoples and said something like this, sort of, peace be multiplied unto you. From my presence I made a dogma for the one in posse archie, in every rule of my Vasilius, to be trembling in phovumenus, phobia, from the face of the God of Daniel. For he is the living God. Wow, this is just like Nebuchadnezzar. He saw that this is the real God. And abiding into the Aeonus. And his Vasilia shall not be destroyed. There's a prophecy. And his dominion is unto the end. Well, is there an end? He takes hold of and rescues. And P produces. Remember the other one up there about before was, what was it? Forgot the word. Oh, well. Produces signs and miracles in the heaven and upon the earth. That's interesting. Well, did he see any of these signs and miracles? He produces. So he's saying that he does signs and miracles in the heaven and upon the earth. It's a prophesying. And Jesus came and did these things. Now, again, here's another man of the nations, a Gentile, as the King James would call him, believes where the Jews didn't believe. Many of the Jews walked away from God, and they were destroyed, taken to Babylon. But here's a ruler who believes in the things of God, miracles in heaven and upon the earth, who rescued Daniel from out of the stomatos leon tone. And Daniel prospered in the kingdom of Darius. I have could be during, and during the kingdom of Kiru, the Persu, the Persian. This Cyrus is mentioned in 2 Chronicles, the book of Ezra, and the book of Isaiah. The the Darius was mentioned. This other king is mentioned in the books of Ezra, Nehemiah, Haggai, and Zechariah. So all these books mention these two kings. In the next chapter, we will get back into dreams, and this time the dream is by Daniel. Interesting chapter and relates to the book of Revelation greatly, and I hope you'll join us in this chapter, and God bless.